So I hope, even though we don't really feel it directly in this class, it's still nice occasionally to have a 3-day weekend. Um, Sometimes don't really feel it, but I was telling Kelsey that uh, I woke up Monday and I discovered that I didn't have to teach a class Monday morning, which was nice. And I'm sure all the students that were supposed to, that would have been there otherwise on a normal week, were very disappointed that we didn't get together. Oh well. I hope you guys are doing well. We did get a couple submissions um, with the structure and skin assignment, which is nice because we can go over them. And I did email people about the prospectus and how to submit for the UVU Student Art Show. Now, I mentioned that like 2 weeks ago, and everybody should have gotten an email from the university about it. All of you guys should have. I don't know if you did or not, but I did email out this evening the prospectus again, so you guys can go ahead and join that. And the due date is 5 o'clock Friday evening, I believe. So please check that out and see if you want to apply. Sometimes it's nice to know who the jurors are, see if they do work or they're happy with work that is consistent with what you do. But at the very least, I would recommend trying because who knows if you get in that's awesome. I should also mention that there is a student magazine that's done every semester, I believe, that is writing, artwork, and studies that students have done around central themes. And if you're interested in that, let me know, and I will try to get information about that and how you guys can submit your own artwork to it. And on March 21st, I believe March 21st, in the Fulton Library, and I don't know exactly which room it's in, I will be there presenting um, for the folklore conference. That's a Saturday, if you guys are interested in that.
Which Saturday are you doing that?
I believe it's March 21st is when it is. Oh, Kayla, it's good to see that you're here too. Excellent. I wanted to, for today, I wanted to talk a little bit about submitting, resubmitting, and stuff like that. I haven't had these issues so much in this class, but I wanted to let you know that they do exist. Um, One is occasionally I will see submissions with AI, and the class policy for this class is in the syllabus, and it's essentially AI is a tool, and I think it's a really can be a really good tool, but AI should never be used as a replacement for thinking. It's not, even though it mimics thinking, it's not designed to think. Um, AI is designed to predict how shapes and words fit together under certain circumstances. And it draws from a vast array of different kinds of information to come together with suggestions as how these words or shapes can fit together. I would be willing to bet real money that none of your professors are really actually interested in reading thousands of student essays every semester. That's not why they have you write essays or write responses or write reflections. The reason why we have you write is to demonstrate your thinking and your thinking process. So if you choose to use AI as a tool to help you organize things or to help you write an outline, different things like that, or to help you write the spine of something, I think that's completely fine. That fits in the realm of using it as a tool. But when we are asking for what are your observations, you need to share your observations, not something else's. And I think I mentioned to you guys before, um, one of the big giveaways is when I'll be reading an essay by somebody and it'll say in the middle, I'm sorry, I do not have an opinion about this because I'm an AI generator. I am not, I'm not designed to have opinions. Um, if you use AI to help organize your thoughts like a tool, that's great, but also make sure that you always rewrite everything in your own words so your voice comes through. The universe spent 17 billion years preparing everything in place so that can share your voice, and you should be using it. So again, that is not an issue that I've run across with this class. It is something that I think that everybody should be thinking about. When you do other classes, when you do your advanced writing classes for your degree and stuff like that, know that AI can be a good tool, but also pay attention to what your instructor, your professor says regarding using AI in their classrooms. Another thing that I wanted to tell people is that there's been, with the annotated bibliographies, there have been a couple people who got perfect scores right off the gate, but the vast majority of people, there's a couple tweaks that need to happen. Maybe a little bit more writing, maybe formatting, maybe adding accessed on dates at the end of citations, or even a couple people I asked to double check their citations because they seemed way too short. And that when people double check, sometimes they're different, sometimes they're not, and they just let me know, yeah, I double checked, and that's fine. That's great. When you resubmit, I try to regrade it as rapidly as I can so you get your new points. Now, have any of you three that are here resubmitted assignment that I graded? So none of you have? Okay. I when you do that, oh, it looks like somebody's typing. Hold on a sec. Okay, Anna, have I regraded those after you've resubmitted them? Okay, all right, good. I try to do that as rapidly as possible. Now, sometimes they're just weird. Like yesterday, I came across one where somebody submitted a very short essay about a photographer from India, which I have no idea where the heck that came from. But when something like that happens, it'll be a zero until you turn around and resubmit with the right format or the right assignment. So I just want to double check that with everybody and try to do the best you can to stay on top of things. I am noticing that folks are going through and every once in a while they realize, oh wow, that was supposed to be turned in a month ago and I totally forgot it. And that's fine. Just let me know what's going on. Turn something in. If you get any sort of a hassle, just let me know what's going on. And if you know that something's going to be late, let me know and we can work around it. Last year, I had a student that was trapped in an airport without service in Buenos Aires, I think, right at the tail end of the semester, because the service project that she was doing, their flight was canceled coming back to the States, and we were able to even get that sorted out. So I am more than happy to help with whatever the issues are. All right, now what I would like to do is I want to look at the two submissions that came in and we'll talk about them. Again, when I critique something like that, I am critiquing whatever the object is in relationship to the parameters and expectations of the assignment. I am not making a judgment call as to whether or not the art is any good. I hope all of you understand that. Uh, Many times things that did not fit an assignment parameter set of parameters was also submitted to the student art show and they were able to get in. I've even had an angry student tell me, well, I got in the student art show. Why didn't you give me a better grade? And um, I told them they were this was a couple years ago and they were rather upset. So I told them to talk to the department head and have them grade their thing if if they were so concerned about it. And they found out from the department head that their grade would have been a lot lower than what I gave them. And that department head said specifically, it's because this is needs to be graded according to the parameters of the assignment, not whether or not the art is any good. So I hope that is clear for everybody. So I'm going to show you something. We're going to do a screen share and let me know if you guys can see this. All right, can everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. All right, this has two different views. This, they made this with an infinity screen behind it, and that is excellent. This is really well photographed. And there's a couple things that I want to point out that I really like about this. One is the modules. I mean, the modules are relatively simple, but this person made 9 different modules. So this is excellent. I love that. The paper, they put 2 pieces of paper on each module. Now there are a couple things that I want to say about this that I think there's something that I would suggest, and then there's something else that I would say that may pull this away from fitting the parameters of the assignment. But the two parameters that it fits really well is first, it's a repeatable module, and they made plenty of them is the second one. Another one that I think is good is that they've added a lot of paper to it. You look at each of the modules have 2 sides that has paper on it. Now, one thing that I do notice though is that the paper is this is all set up so the paper is on the same plane. And there's no paper on this side or this side. All the paper is either away from you right there, or it's flat like that. So we would only see it on edge if we're standing in front of it, or it's in front of you. There's 3 pieces, 4 or 5 pieces that are in front towards the front. I think that this would be more successful and look like it's more balanced if that was alternated. Instead of having the paper all along this side, what about taking off this and putting paper on this side? Or taking off this and putting it in the front? Or taking off this and putting it on the other side? So it's alternated because we see there's no paper at all in here on this side. And on the other face, that's opposite this face, as there's no paper at all either. That does generate a distinctive imbalance. Another thing that I think that is really interesting is this is 3D, but it's all in one plane. And I think that this would really benefit from thinking less about stacking these like blocks. Maybe think about putting them in different, attaching them in different angles to each other and see how that works. Like instead of these are all stacked, and you can see this is really stable. It's very stacked, it's very clean. But what if, like this one, the second up, was rotated 30 degrees? And maybe what if this one, the third one up, was rotated the opposite direction, 60 degrees? What would it do? That would first that would make it so that this paper was on its separate plane from each other, and it would start to activate the space on either side of this. So right now it is three-dimensional. It is sticking up, and it does have a little bit of depth. But one of the things we talked about last week was activating the volume of space around that. And this still feels very planar. It's in one single plane. And I think it would be really interesting to, let's say, take this one, rotate it 30 degrees and set it way off to the side out here. Maybe doing the same thing with this one, but setting it way off to the side the other direction. And then maybe doing this one and bringing it forward or in this direction a bit. But by doing that, we still maintain something of a tower, but we start to activate the volume of space all around this. And I think that would be definitely something for this person to consider and look at. Those two elements, putting paper on different faces and then working to activate the volume of space around this. We looked at last week at lit match, water bearer, and untitled in the quiz. Untitled is that exploding star of picks. Water bearer was the person. There was a head, top of a torso, and some feet attached to or interspersed with a granite block. And then lit match was by Mark de Suavero. Suavero? And it was the gigantic red I-beams. Each of those activated space. The water bearer activated space psychologically. The exploding matchstick star activated space by uh, having the toothpicks go in, or the matchsticks going in all sorts of different directions. And the lit match, Marto Suavero's structure with the red I beams activated space because all those different I beams were going in different directions. There were maybe 8 different I beams, and it tilted at odd directions. It almost felt like it was leaning against the air, but it wasn't all set in the same direction. And let me see if I can find an image of that. Okay, hold on a second here. Mark D. Suvero. That's it. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. When we look at this, remember that we saw several different variations of this sculpture that he did. And this is the one that's in the quiz right here. Notice that it's not all on the same plane. Now, these two are on the same plane, and this one is on the same plane. It makes a flat arrow. But then you also have these things going out to the side on either side. And it's leaning over. It doesn't look entirely, it's balanced, but it feels a little bit uncomfortable and engages you. I like this is a really good example. These are going in every which direction. And look, this same kind of thing. And this one even, you see how oh, I'm sorry. We're sharing the wrong tab. Here we go. Here's the lit match. That's from our quiz. And you see this horizontal beam, this upright diagonal, this diagonal going down. They're all on the same plane, but then these 3 other ones are not. They're going in different directions, and you have this little thing going in different directions. This is a good example. They stick out in all sorts of different directions. They're balanced, they're stable, but they are actively engaged in the volume of space around them. And you can see how each of them resolve that kind of idea a little bit differently. I'm hoping that that is making sense to you. And now I want to show another example, and then we're going to look at ones from past classes. Okay. Now looking at this one, can everybody identify what the module is that was made? What's the module?
I don't know.
Okay, Anna says the screen froze. Is the screen still frozen, or can you guys see this?
No, that was earlier when you were flipping through pictures on,
Mark de
uh,
Severo?
yeah,
Okay. Did you guys still get what I was trying to go for, even though the pictures didn't all come through?
yes.
Okay. Right. The module on this is this kind of box shape, this long three-dimensional rectangle. It's a rectangular prism, essentially. We have two stacked on each other right here. We have one at flat against the ground here, stuck at right angles to these tall ones. We have this one that's attached at an angle here. This moving up. This one is attached in the middle at it's on the same orientation almost as this one on the ground, except it's attached to the central shaft at an angle, which is interesting. We have this tall one right here that's attached towards the top and leaning towards us, and this very topmost one is attached on the side and it's leaning to the side. We have skin on the central one. We have these two pieces of skin facing us, and then it looks like on the opposite side. On this one, we have one piece of skin on the long edge that's attached to the central column and a small piece of skin. And then on the very bottom one, we have a small piece of skin that's facing us. We have something attached on one of the long sides. Here it's the middle piece has the two short sides attached for the skin. This one hanging off to the left has two pieces of skin on long sides, as well as the one at the very top on the right-hand side. Can everybody see all this? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So if we look at the parameters of the assignment, we asked for a repeated module, and it looks like they made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these modules again. Now they're not identical. Like this one on the right at the top is much longer than the one at the left at the top, but they are similar enough that we can identify them as being almost identical shapes. They're very, very similar. And look at where the skin is placed. The skin, it looks like there's two pieces of skin on each of these six-sided rectangular boxes, and they're not always in the same spots. Like this middle one has it only on the two small sides. This one towards the bottom that is angled off to the right has one of the long sides and one of the short sides, as well as the very most bottom one. So it's not always in the same spot. But what's interesting is in the top left and on the top right, that skin seems to kind of frame a little bit the structure that's in front of it. And we do have skin on the long sides on the edge, so we see the skin edge on, which is kind of interesting. In the case of the top left piece, we can see the underside of the skin, and on the top right piece, we see the outside of the skin that is almost on edge. This middle piece is interesting to me because on the leading edge that's facing us, we have a piece of skin that's hiding the structure underneath it. And on the edge that's really far away, the other small piece, it's on the outside of the structure. So it kind of frames the structure that's being used to make that box shape. Can you guys see all this? The skin varies as to where it's been put. And it adds energy and it adds interest. It makes the potential viewer want to walk around it. What am I not seeing right here? What can I move and see it? And it starts to engage the monkey mind. Now, it looks to me also that this person made an infinity screen at home, and I think they did a really good job. I think this is nicely photographed. So I think this is a really good example of meeting the parameters and expectations of the assignment. I think it is really well done. Now, if you turn this in and it looks like you might need to change things or add things to it, um, last semester there was somebody who did this. I think I told you like 6 different times in order to get to a point where it met the parameters of the assignment. Most of the time, what's going to be required is just a little bit of tweaking, maybe separating the modules and turning them around in different ways and reattaching them. And generally, that's all it will take. Sometimes it may take more work than that, but most of the time, that's all it takes. Okay, now I wanted to show you several different examples of previous stuff, and I would like, as much as you can, um, whoever can participate, uh, I want you, as we go through these, look at them and tell me what you think works or doesn't work as much as possible. Now, I think that this one, can you guys see this image? It looks like kind of a weird structure with um, popsicle sticks and red and yellow paper. Can you guys see it?
Yeah. Does this follow the parameters for the assignment?
Yes, I believe it does. And
Okay.
like it has six different modules, and you can kind of see that each of the modules has a square base,
Mhm.
and then they have popsicle sticks that attach the bottom side, the square base, and then meet at a peak right up here.
I love this. Like this is
So that
so it's so different than what you've been showing us. That's why I'm like, is this okay? But like this is so neat.
Yeah, they made a geometric structure, a three-dimensional geometric structure for the module, but it doesn't fit any of those shapes on that 3D modeling site that I sent you guys at the
Yeah.
very beginning of the term, and it doesn't fit the the standard um, geometric forms that we're used to. But you can see that they are identical, and each of them have the base. The base skin is made by weaving red and yellow paper together. And then each of them have a red piece of paper, or I guess that might be orange, a red piece of paper in a triangle and a yellow piece of paper in a triangle. And that's the skin. They attach the central point in all of them. They didn't stack this up, and it is very formally constructed. But what's interesting about it, it's made kind of like a jack. So there's six of these used. Three of them will be on the ground at any given time. The other three will go out at right angles to the rest of the body of the structure, and it serves to activate and engage the volume of space all around it. And I love this one because it goes against all those expectations, but still fits all the parameters of the assignment. So do you guys like this one? I mean, you probably don't like it as much as me, but can you see what's going on with this one?
Yeah. I love this one. I think it's so fun.
I think it worked out really well. Now, I want to show you a couple that don't quite fit as well. And I think let's see. All right. Yeah, I do want to show you this one. This is another one where there's a couple parameters that it's missing. It looks like to me this octahedron shape might be what they're going for as their module. But what's baffling to me is that this is the only example of that module. All the rest of it is just these triangles.
Yeah.
And I do think there's a nice balance of skin and structure. I think that looks really good. The other thing that's off is this feels like it's a line that goes away and up. It doesn't engage the volume of space on either side of it.
Yeah.
So that's a couple things that it's missing. Now this one, we do have an identifiable module. It is that four-sided pyramid again, and they're kind of playing on that. Some of them are short, like the ones at the top, and the rest of them are long, like down here. But a couple of things that are unfortunate about this is that this is made as a flower blossom, and it doesn't really actively engage the volume of space around it. I mean, it's very, very stable, but it doesn't feel as engaging as it could be. And the simplest way to fix that, I think, would be to set it on these 2 points and this so that it's on its side and take a photo from a different angle. And then I think it would probably meet most of the requirements. Or even setting it on these 3 points so it's a little bit off and putting something else in the center pointing up or something. But
Or
when
do you
we
think
do
if
something,
like the skin was different, it would be more engaging? Like it all the skin's right at the bottom and then there's just that one piece that goes right up in the back. But if
there's
we
a skin right
remove
here
that,
and skin right here.
oh,
So
I
you
see.
see the two pieces right there.
Yeah.
And I think you're right about that too. If this was photographed at an angle, so it wasn't like this, and we saw it, like if you can see my pointer, if we saw it coming in from an angle like this, then we could see where the skin is, and it would be less, I mean, it would be more energetic.
Yeah. I can see what
And
you're
so,
saying.
I think that this has a chance of succeeding, but the way it's photographed, it's not feeling really successful. Okay, now here's a tricky one. Can you see the module in this?
It just doesn't seem consistent.
Well, hopefully this will put it into perspective. See this bar right here where my mouse is tracing?
Yeah.
This is the module.
Okay.
So this module turned at right angles and rotated is right here, and then turned again right here, back here, and right there. There's five of them in this.
Okay.
And I think that this is really fascinating because that module, it's a little bit more complicated, so there's only five of them. It is very difficult to identify, but it does fit. And there are a little bit of tweaks. Like right on this module, this line is a little bit shorter, and on this module, it's a little bit longer. No, I mean, sorry, it's even shorter. Right. I'm sorry. I'm talking about this line right here. It's a little bit longer here, and it's a little bit shorter right here. And what is the only thing that I'm thinking this really needs is more skin. Because I think that this would be really engaging if there's a piece of skin like on this triangle right here, or this triangle. If there was a piece of skin like right on this triangle here, something like that, that would make this a lot more interesting. But I think if you can see that module repeated throughout it, it it, it is another one of those really unexpected applications of the assignment parameters. I think it's really interesting. And I'm pausing because I'm going through and I'm seeing which other ones I want to show you. Okay, now this one, we have an identifiable module, four-sided pyramid. They've made variations on it. They've made, I think there's 8 or 9 of them here. And this one is about twice the size of this one. I think all that is well and good. The paper, you have a sheet of paper attached to each of the modules. But some of the things that I think would make this a little bit more interesting is if the paper wasn't always on the same side. I think that, it looks like they were thinking of the middle student example that is in the assignment, but it feels a little bit too regular. I do like how the module is the same module, but it's distorted as you go through. It's small here and it gets bigger. But the one thing that I really have an issue with this image is that it's all on one plane. It's a flat spiral.
Oh.
And I think that this could be so much more interesting if, for example, maybe this one was close to us, and as it spiraled up, maybe the middle went away from us, and then this was tweaked a bit so that this largest one had this outside edge facing us. So the spiral loops around in 3D space in addition to curling around on the same plane.
Right.
I think that might be kind of interesting. Now, right away, I hope everybody recognizes this only has 3 modules and it's really tiny. If you want to do like smaller modules like this, make it 12 of them. And there is an example of somebody who did that. But these modules are so tiny, it really, and there's only 3 of them, it really doesn't fulfill many of the parameters. I do like how they put the paper in front on this one, and it's a little bit different. But to really actively engage the volume of space around it, it does need more modules, and it needs 5 to 8 just to fit with the class. This one I think is really interesting. The module is that four-sided pyramid, and you can see they've used text and they've used images for the skin, and they put it on different sides. And how they've attached these together is like right here, there's four that all have the points sharing. I mean, the top point is common among all of these, and then it starts branching off. I mean, this one comes off this direction. This one is facing towards us. This one branches off to the top right, and then this is pointing away from us to the top left. And I think this is really fascinating. I think that this would be more successful with a few more of these modules, but I think that this is really fun and engaging. I think this is going in a really good direction. Now, the biggest problem that I have with this one is, again, that there's no 3D module. This is just triangles that are put together. It also feels very squat. And I think this is an interesting idea, and it could go in good directions. Now, this one, I had a hard time when I first saw this. I had a difficult time because I thought, are there modules or aren't there? And there are two of the same modules. Well, there's three of the same modules, and then there's two others that are completely different. And I think it would be interesting if all the modules were this shape. This shape is repeated right here and underneath. But if all the modules were this shape, this could be really interesting. And I liked what they did with the paper, putting the paper in one place here, two sides right there, and then towards you right here, and doing that in these three that are obviously the same module. And these two, I think, are distorted to the point where they just don't feel like the same shape at all. But I think that this would be really interesting. If they wanted to work on this more, they could make two more copies of this module and then put it together. I think the placement of these is really interesting and how it engages space. But I I think that this would be so much more successful if they had picked this one module to repeat over and over. And I think it is a really fascinating shape that they chose. Now this one, the skin placement is really interesting, and this does engage 3D space, but the biggest drawback is there is an identifiable module that they kept to and repeated. This maybe a four-sided pyramid here, and this is a cube, but it just does not fill that parameter of the assignment. This is an interesting thing too. I think this is a fascinating structure, but again, there's no repeated module. This one does have repeated modules, and it's interesting to me how this one is small and this one is big. I do like how they put it together, but I think for this to really activate three-dimensional space, it needs three or four more of these to stick out around in this area, because this feels quite a bit just like a tower. And maybe making it go up like that is not the right thing to do. Maybe a better thing to do would be to stick with this one right here and then glue these other four to it coming out in different directions, and then add an additional three modules to it coming out in more directions, seeing what that does. So I'm hoping you guys can see that there are modules that are repeated, or their space is activated, or paper and structure are a good balance. But the most successful ones make sure that they keep the parameters of all aspects of the assignment. Now, can you identify the module in this? Because there is one.
Yeah, it's kind of like a triangle with like a little twist to it on one
Yes,
side.
that's exactly right. It's a triangle with a little twist, and you can see that right here. And it's repeated right there, 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 there. And we can tell because in each one, they've put a blue triangle right there on that one side. I like how the module kind of forces you to play with how it's put together. It can't be stacked. I think that that's a really interesting design element. I like that. The only issue that I have with this is that it feels a little bit contained. And I'm thinking this might be successful with just turning it on its edge to photograph it. And that may be all we need. Maybe photographing it so that this on the top left, that is towards the base. And maybe it might need one more module to stabilize it so that it can be photographed like that. But I think this is really interesting. And I like, yeah, there aren't very many paper pieces, but we have paper that's hiding. We have paper that's right on edge. We have paper that's behind and framing the structure. I think this is really interesting. Oh, and Anna said there was one that she liked. Which one was that? It was probably a while
Oh,
ago.
that
I
was
wasn't.
her comment to that orange and yellow one at the very beginning that we all really
Oh, okay.
liked.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
In just a second.
Yeah, this is an interesting take, but again, it doesn't fulfill the parameters of the assignment. There's not a repeatable module. It's interesting how they played with where placement of the skin. That's fascinating, but it feels like there's too much skin. You can't. Um, it almost feels like a solid object, and it's contained enough that it really doesn't feel like it activates the volume of space around it. And here's one where there's no identifiable module. It's interesting, but it doesn't go super far beyond being interesting. This one is fascinating. And this one I like too because the person did submit 3 different photos where they set it on different edges. And it's versatile. And when it was set on this point and the back point, it stood up and engaged all 3 directions really well. The module is this octahedron form, and they made 6 of them and put it together. And I like how they put it together. They did share triangle faces without doing too much turning, but they tried really hard to make sure that every time they added a module and stuck it on, it pointed in a completely different direction. And I thought this did really well. Each of them had, I believe it was 3 pieces of skin on the 8-sided tetrahedron. And I thought that turned out really well.
I really like this one. They did a really great job.
I think that this one worked out really well, especially when it's right next door to ones that don't fill the parameters of the assignment. I think this is another good example of one where in this case the module is this cube, and each of the cubes have 2 pieces of paper on it. And sometimes the paper is on opposite sides, like these 3, and sometimes it's on and this one as well. It looks like almost all of them have it on 2 opposite sides, but the bottom one and this one, it's a little bit less predictable. Like here, the paper's on this far side and the top side right here. And I like how they stacked this. They didn't stack them like building blocks. See the corner of this cube goes through the side of this cube. Then in turn, it sits on the corner of this cube. And by doing that, it allowed the person to put the cubes together in such a way that it reaches out in almost, well, 2 different spirals. And really, I think, engages that volume of space around it. There's a lot of energy to it.
When I first saw this, I'm like, I don't like it. But then as I look at it more, I'm like, no, I do like this. This is really cool. I think what I don't like is the 2 different mediums, like this really thick, thin wood on the ends, but then the skinnier popsicle sticks on the side. I
Yeah, because we have
think
that
that's gonna work
the
out.
wider wood right here on the two
Yeah.
ends and the skinnier. And I think that one thing that would make this more successful for me is maybe if this cube had another piece of paper in it.
Mm.
Just a little bit more paper, but I think that this one does a really good job. And that is a little unsettling when you see that in the module. You have the tongue depressor next to the popsicle stick.
Yeah. But I think overall, I do like this one. I think I just don't like the mixture of the two different woods. But this looks really neat.
Now, as we look at this one, this is an interesting one too. And what's unsettling to me about it is that they use those craft sticks instead of popsicle sticks. So it makes me think of popsicle sticks that somebody has chewed on.
Oh yeah. I can see that.
And, and I hope you can see the module is you have a triangular base, and then this point goes up here and then is attached to the middle of the opposite leg. So that's what the module is. And which I think is really an interesting idea. And I kind of like, for the most part, how they did the paper, but I do think that this central one, right, this middle one that's kind of an orange one, would really benefit from having one more piece of paper like right in the middle. I think that might do it.
Yeah. I do like the color. Like
Yeah, it's interesting going from dark red to the yellow at the top. But there is that module, and it's a repeated module. And even though it is basically a tower, they've stuck them on at different angles. So I think it does a better job of activating space than it would if it was just a straight tower. I would like to see like another module attaching these two and sticking out to the left, and maybe something else sticking away from us to the right. I think that might really make it activate the space around it better. Now this one is, I love the photography right down here, the shadows. This kind of bothers me about the photography, these two horizontal lines right through here. But the thing that makes it so that this does not work for the assignment is, again, there's no 3D module. The person just did squares and attached squares together, which is one of the reasons why they needed this central pier to support all those squares. I do like how the squares kind of spiral around that, but if they made this out of cubes, they could attach the cubes going at different angles and have it make a spiral tower, and then have other cubes stick out this to the side a little bit so that it activated the volume of space around it. And I think that even though this is interesting, it does need quite a bit more skin. And that could have been solved by making these into 3D modules like the assignment calls for, I think.
I think this one looks so cool. Um, but yeah, I see what you're talking about, that it has to be 3D.
Yeah,
That
it does not fit
is
the
so neat.
parameters of the assignment. Yeah, it is neat. And that's the thing. Like this one is one of my favorite sculptures of all time for the class that I've taught, but it does not fit the assignment.
Oh wow. Yeah, this is really cool.
And you can see that there isn't a 3D module. There is this square thing with these screen elements, and then the one behind it rotates 45 degrees, and the one behind that rotates 40, and it keeps going back. It just makes like kind of like this really cool steampunk telescope type of thing,
Yeah, it's
but it
so
does not, there's not a repeatable 3D module for one thing. It does not activate the volume of space around it. And even though these are really interesting elements, the way it's shown to us, it does not read as a skin element. Now, what if your 3D module was this face right here and this face right here joined together, so it's kind of almost a twisted cube? That would be a really cool module to start with. You make 5 of those, and some of them you do this kind of screen across the whole face, and others you have this kind of a design. Then it would serve to read a skin. That might be really interesting. But even though I really like this, it does not fit the parameters of the assignment. And this is one of those where it's really an interesting idea, but we can't really go very far with it because the only 3D module is right here, the four-sided pyramid, and all the rest are just triangles. Now, there are a lot of good things about this one, but why does not this not fit the parameters of the assignment?
Is it because not all of them are 3D elements? No. This
Well,
is cool.
they are, it is that four-sided pyramid over and over again, and that fits. But one thing is, this is all on the same plane. It's an arc. It could, the only thing that keeps it from reading flat is that the two ends of the arc are supported on the ground. The other thing is that there's not an awful lot of paper. It reads almost all structure, so there's not a lot of balance. Now, two of the ways to fix this would be, let's see right here, there's a piece of paper, one piece of paper on this pyramid, one piece of paper on this pyramid down here, but none on these others. If this person doing this just alternated, on each of these three sides, the paper going back, that would solve the problem with the paper. So, you have the paper right here. On this one, the paper's on the side like it is right there. And then this third one, paper would be on this side, then it would repeat. That would be one solution for the paper. And that would also, triple the amount of paper that's being shown. The another solution for the 3D thing would be instead of making this an arc, make it a spiral, an irregular spiral. So maybe the bottom starting right there, maybe it goes off and to the left, then spirals back towards us a little bit, and then maybe corkscrews off. And the two things that touch the ground are the bottom of the corkscrew loop here and right here. And so that would make it so that it's not reading as being flat in the same plane, and it would be kind of this irregular corkscrew. And I think that would be that's what I suggested to this person to fix it. And those two things would make it so that this would fit firmly within the parameters of the assignment, but I think would also make it really engaging as a sculpture. The thing that's frustrating to me is that I really like this form. It does not fit the parameters of the assignment. Now, this one I thought had some potential, but again, what we're looking at is there isn't a repeatable 3D module, and that's something that needs to be addressed with this one. Now, this one I think is really interesting. I think this covers most all of the aspects we're looking for, except I do think it needs a couple more modules. Maybe one that comes out towards us right here, maybe one that sits on top right out here that points another way. And then that would help to really solidly engage the volume of space around it. What's the biggest problem with this one? I mean, this is a fascinating sculpture. It looks very cool. Reminds me quite a bit of the Russian um, expressionist sculpture in the 30s, and I like it. I think it's very cool. But why doesn't it fit for this assignment?
There's no repeating module.
Exactly. This I think is a fascinating use of the skin. I That is really very cool to me.
Like snake skin.
Yeah. And this is just paper towel that's glued on this and then burnt in sections. And that's all it is, but it looks really cool. The problem with this though is that there's not that repeatable 3D module. And it because it is this lattice of triangles that kind of curves towards us at the bottom, it prevents it from really activating three-dimensional space as well. Now, this one is another one that I really, really like, but it doesn't quite do what we need it to do. Maybe there
It's
could be more skin to it. I kind of like the idea of the sails in there instead of just being attached to these four-sided pyramids. But the biggest issue is this is a ring. And
oh,
how much more interesting would this be? And it would definitely engage three-dimensional space if instead of making a flat ring like this, the person made kind of a dimensional figure eight. I think that
it's
would like those Mobius strip, 3D Mobius strip images you see online. I think that could be really cool.
is it considered okay if we did something like this with the paper bent in a sail way like that? Is that
It,
considered
it,
part of the parameters?
it does feel, I think if you did that, you'd have to play with it a bit because for me, this kind of reads like that they're trying something outside of the expectations, which is totally fine. But I
Yeah, they're
think that
trying to
this
be
would be more
fancy.
successful if it had like maybe three of these had flat pieces of paper glued to them. So we saw that they were paying attention to what we were talking about and played with the skin. It doesn't feel quite to me like the skin is really in balance here.
Okay.
But I think it is an interesting idea. And maybe something like this, maybe the thing that would make it successful would be each of these that have the sails have a contrasting piece of paper that's a triangle that's flat or something. That might be really interesting. This one I think is a fascinating idea, use of the skin, but again, there's no repeatable module. They're just triangles. This one I think is really interesting as well. There is a repeatable module. It's the four-sided pyramid. The problem that I have with this is that it reads just as a tower. There is something that sticks off right here, but I think this would be so much more interesting if, for example, this pyramid was stuck to this one with the points not touching but sliding next to each other, and that this top one is rotated 20 degrees or something. And I think that this kind of idea of using the skin to lace it, or using string to lace it as the skin, that's only really successful if we also have areas here and there of like paper to kind of counterpoint this, and then would read that this would is a skin as well. So I think that the two things that this really needs is more modules so they can be stuck on at different angles um, to activate the volume of space around it, and something that really helps us to for our brains to process this as skin, which would mean additional pieces of just flat paper, and maybe just like two or three of them of flat paper would help us to associate the string as an area of skin. This one I think is really interesting. And this is one of those where, okay, you have the four-sided pyramid. They're attaching it in different ways. I love all that. What I do, there's only five of them here. If you're going to do a simple shape like that, you need eight. And on this, I think like one could be attached right here to stabilize it and point out this way. Another one right here pointing out that way. Maybe one right here creating a little bit of a stronger base. And that might be enough to do it. But I think that this is really interesting as a structure. But yeah, I don't know if you can tell, the skin is just the veining of leaves. And if you want to do something like that, that's great. But just like this one with the string, in order for us to read that as skin, there needs to be areas of paper that we identify readily as skin. And then our brains will see the connection between the leaf veins and the identified skin. Do you guys understand what I'm talking about there? We are going a little bit into psychology, but in order for those areas to read as skin, there has to be something that our brains can connect it to that we know as skin. And it may just be maybe a little bit darker paper that these are glued to, the leaf veining. And that might, that would be for very interesting skin and alternating those ideas. So more modules to activate that three-dimensional volume of space around it, and then additional areas of paper skin so we can read the veining, the leaf veins as skin as well. Now on this one, what if you don't mind me asking, what are the things that it's doing well, and what are things that can be done to improve it?
It has a repeating module, and the
Yeah.
skin is rotating, which is good. But I think what it needs is more modules.
Yes, I think you're right. And I think that attaching the modules in an irregular manner would definitely help to activate the volume of space around it. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. What do you think about this one? For me, there's only 5 modules, but they stagger in size quite a bit. We have this one that is, a quarter the size of this one. I think that the only real thing that this needs, because these points and stuff, they stick out every which way, every which direction. I think I would like to see a couple more modules sticking out in different ways, but I think a little bit more paper, like on the far side of this middle one, would be nice, or on the far side of this top one. I think that would be really interesting to have the paper in there, and maybe one more module stuck right there or something. But I think that this one is pretty good at activating the volume of space around it. I just think it needs another couple modules. And I like the way that they did do the same module, but they staggered the size, or they changed the size quite a bit. Now, the biggest problem with this one that I have is we have two different kinds of pyramid, four-sided pyramid and a five-sided pyramid on these two, but there is not any sort of a consistent module. And that becomes very quickly problematic. And this one, I love the different ways that they had of doing the skin. And because they do have some flat areas of skin, it starts to read especially these areas start to read as skin. But the problem is there's no identifiable module. So was it helpful? Uh, was it helpful to see all of those and kind of walk through each one? Eh, They're all so completely different. But I'm really hoping you guys get a good solid idea of what we're talking about. Repeated modules, using skin, when we put things together, activating the volume of space around it. If it's too regular, it's not going to read as interesting. And oh, and it says it was very helpful to see what works and what doesn't work. Yes, this assignment is due on Sunday, and like with all the projects, I want you guys to get it done so we can talk about it, and then so you can make the improvements that you need to. Because again, we don't meet together, and being able to do that and rework your assignments is in lieu of meeting together in class, so we can talk to each other as we're building the stuff. So yeah, this needs to be done by Sunday, and then we'll talk about them on Wednesday.
Yeah, this was really helpful for me because I still haven't quite started mine. I'm struggling to just pick a shape or a module to, and I feel like this has given me some really good direction. I could see myself like not making enough modules or making some of the mistakes that we were seeing. So I'm glad we did this and showed us how it all works. I feel like it set us up for success.
Well, if it helps at all, if any of you guys play Dungeons and Dragons, just getting a couple dice sets and playing with those the four-sided die or the six-sided die,
That is such a smart
that
idea.
that can really help to get it kind of get your brain started.
Yeah, I love that. That is a great idea. Yeah, because I'm just like, what shape do I do? And I personally kind of don't want to do just a triangle or a square. Like, I'd like to do something a little unique, but I'm just like, I don't even know. But that's really helpful. I think that's a great idea.
Well, and that one website that we looked at the very beginning of class, polyhedra.net,
Yeah.
just scrolling through that might give you guys some good ideas too.
I was actually just looking through that before this meeting because I thought it would help give me some ideas.
Yeah, one thing that I like is one of the more successful ones I've seen is somebody went to that polyhedra.net site and they made a couple kaleidocycles out of paper. And as they were playing with that, that's what gave them the idea of how to join together their modules. And that was really beneficial. So that might be something to look at as well. And
Yeah.
I think some of the things to remember are, make the module first and kind of play with it. Put the paper on it first. And then as you put it together, instead of stacking it like Legos, skew things, turn them at angles, see what that does. Find different ways of joining it together so it's not what people expect. And I think that really helps finding ways of activating the volume of space around it. And I'd also recommend too, try to join them so that if you need to take them apart and reposition them, you can. Because it may be a couple people last semester I just said a couple things like if you can rotate these in in different angles from each other, and when they took it apart and did that, it completely transformed how their whole sculpture looked, and it became very successful. So think about that, and it might also be kind of fun to just brainstorm ideas of what can you do for the skin. One of the more cool ones about 2 years ago, somebody did. The skin was a mixture of they had solid paper for a couple. They had woven paper, like that first one that we saw, and there were even a couple that they did crochet, and they made granny squares and put that as the skins for a couple areas. And that was really fun to see. And maybe your module is a cube, but with the sides turned 45 degrees, or something like that. That might be interesting to consider. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope this helps quite a bit. I will look forward to seeing you guys. I'm sorry, before I wind up, is there any more questions that people have? And Anna, I think I answered your question. This is due on Sunday. Are there any more questions that people have? All right, well, excellent. Thank you for so much for joining me today. And I'm sorry we did not go for the full 3 hours that we had scheduled. But next week, I'm really looking forward to going through what you guys have submitted and talking about things. And again, when we do this, remember that we are talking about how these assignments associate with or fulfill the parameters and expectations of the assignments. When you do your project, I'm not able to pop open your skull and see what you're thinking when you do something, but I am able to speak to things like craftsmanship and consistency to the parameters of the assignment. And so that's what we are focusing on when we talk about critiques for these projects in the class. So if there's no further questions, I hope you guys have a wonderful week and weekend, and I look forward to seeing everybody next Wednesday.
All right. Have a nice rest of your week. See
All
ya.
right, we'll see you guys. Oh, thank you.